We'd like to call the work session to order. Is it 5 o'clock? What do you have? 5:03. The first item on the agenda is we're doing the draft agenda. Giovanna and John also was a great help. John Hines, Deputy Supervisor, Giovanna Neal, the Accounting Director. So a couple things before Giovanna starts. I'm sorry. Okay, before Giovanna starts is we're actually doing the budget in BSA, which is a program a lot of the municipalities use and Ypsilanti Township uses for different ordinance, building, assessing, accounting. Clerks don't use it. So the budget is now done in BSNA. It used to be done in Word and then converted over, and so that's something new. We also have new numbers because the state of Michigan issued new numbers, so every municipality has the same budget numbers when you're looking at someone's budget. So those were two major changes, and it took a lot to get where we're at with the draft budget, but now it's set for eternity now, unless the state changes something or BSA is replaced, but it's really a good thing to have everything in BSNA. So with that, Giovanna, you want to lead us through the presentation of the draft budget?
Yes, I'm Giovanna Neal, the Accounting Director, and I would like to do a brief overview of the accounts that are the numbers that will actually go through a lot of the funds. And I have an itinerary for you, and we're going to hit the tax revenue, state shared revenue, basic expenditures, and then pension and OPEB. All those touch every department and every fund. There are exceptions in some of the funds, like our BSR2 fund, which is our bike, sidewalk, path, roads, general government, that catch-all one that we do projects in, that has no wages or fringes in that one. So that, but just kind of wanted to go over that. We have a couple of fun facts for you. We have 19 funds that have to have a budget. Our general fund has 28 departments or cost centers, and we have 1,286 account lines. And we have them all budgeted. We budget by account line, and we put footnotes for each one of those. So it's a big project. As Supervisor Stumbo had said, we had to do update on our chart of accounts. That took me most of the month of July, so I was behind a little bit. Our department heads and supervisors got me their budgets within a timely manner. I think I didn't even give them 2 weeks.
10 days.
Yeah, and so they were able to get those back to me. It was a rush to get these in so that we could get these back to you before August the 31st. So I'd like to thank John Hines. He was very instrumental in helping with this, and Brenda reviewing, and it takes everybody to get this budget. It's very big, but as Supervisor Stumbo said, once it's in BSNA, we've got the notes, the footnotes in there. We'll be able to roll those forward, so it shouldn't take too much for next year, we're hoping. So anyway, so we'll go on to the next page, page 3 of the overview. And this is the tax revenue budget overview. And, on August the 3rd, I think it was the 3rd, I don't have the date down. In August, our voters actually voted to approve our millages that were expired. And those will run from the 21st, which in December, that's our first township collection. It's the tax roll of the 21st, which is our revenue for 22. So it's always a tax roll of 1 year, it's like 21, and the revenue is for 22. So 22's tax roll is 23's revenue. So I always have to say that to myself because it's so different, just to make sure that we have that. All right, the only exception was the fire capital improvement millage, and that one does expire with the 22 tax roll, which would be the 23 revenue, and that's it. That's a 5-year one that will be completed then. We did have a difference of the shift in a millage. You all were aware of that, but I just wanted to say it for the record. We decreased the police millage by 0.25, and we increased the environmental fund by 0.25. So we kept it the same, we just shifted some funds around. We did lower the fire pension, which is for the pension and the OPEB. We lowered that from 1.3300 mils to 1.100 mils. We were able to reduce that down. We did have a Headley rollback. Headley rollbacks are when the annual growth of the existing property is greater than the rate of inflation, then you have a Headley rollback. And we did have a rollback. The only thing that it did affect was the fire capital improvement. We also put it on the general operations, which we really didn't have to, because that's a perpetual amount that we really didn't, but we had decided to go ahead and let's lower that down a little bit for our voters, so we can kind of keep that total millage rate down. Does anybody have any questions on that as I go? You can stop me anytime and ask any questions. So I did want to put in the L4029. This is what we send to the county. This shows our tax rates that we have. I don't know if you're familiar with these or not. If you look on the top, it's really hard to see here, but we've got a taxable value up in the top, I guess it would be the top right-hand side. There's a taxable value of $1,509,688,440. So that's the taxable value. And then what we do is we reduce the Renaissance zone, which we're not getting any funds on that. And so the next number that you'll see on this L4029 is the $1,480,133,552. And then in column 9, you'll see this is the rates, the millage rates that we have, column 9. I don't know if that's hard to see, but is there any questions on that? We did approve this at our August the 17th. Yes, John Newman.
Yeah.
Just have a question on the taxable value minus the Renaissance zone.
Yes.
If the Renaissance zone is zero, then how would it change from 1.5 billion to the 1.488?
The taxable value on that Renaissance zone is 23 million. So you have to reduce that off there because we don't get any revenue on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
We do get a pilot in lieu of taxes, but as far as the tax calculation, we don't get anything for that Renaissance zone. They pay an agreement to pay funds based on what their capital improvements are and what's the property value is. Is that correct?
They pay the school debt bonds, I believe.
Okay.
For both Will Run and a portion of Van Buren, I believe.
Yes.
Right, so the schools, they still get their portions, but as far as we don't get anything from that taxable value. We get it as in lieu of tax payment.
So is that why the taxable value would be reduced?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There are several other reasons, and I've got that on another page for you. But as far as when we send this to the county, they would like us to reduce that Renaissance zone, because usually those are very big numbers.
All right.
So we do put that on there. Yes.
So is there another?
Trustee Swanson.
Is there another form that gets filled out or is kept somewhere that includes everything? Because I know the county, there's a lot of other millages that are passed. If somebody wanted to know, like, the total, everything that's, like, where would that be found, or is that another form?
We can get that information off of our BSNA software. The treasurer does get L4029s from all the schools because we have to put that in our system. So they do have those downstairs in the Treasury Department. They have to have them so they can input them into the system.
Okay.
And there's all of these other forms that the assessor has to do that has a lot of tax stuff in there, and you can get them from the county as well. But the L4025 has everything laid out of what more detailed information that I don't put in here. But we can get information from the county as well.
Thank you.
Debbie, they do have it on the county website, but it is not easy to find.
It's not.
But it's,
I think that's, I don't want to call it deceptive, but I think the accumulation of all of the millages, it should be easy for people to see.
right.
Yeah. I could actually,
Put it on our website.
I can put it on the website, the link, because it took me a while to find it. And I think it's like 148 pages,
It's
because it has everything in it.
Well, each municipality.
Yes. It has yeah.
I think that is better. Yeah, we're not getting feedback, thanks.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Maybe we can put it on the treasury.
Oh, yeah. On their page?
Yeah,
That would be
because
great to put there,
a lot
because
of
I'm sure they
people-
probably have that question quite often come up.
That's a good point, yeah.
Okay. All right, so so this is this is our current millage right now, and then the next page is just a historical. We'll wait for Lisa. It's a historical millage rates. I just thought you would like to see those, and how they've changed, and does anybody have any questions on that? It's just basically the history.
Yeah, and if I could, general operating is a state law that we do. And the pension levy, I think it was in the 60s it was approved for the fire pension.
Right, so we do not have to take that out to the voters. We can change that depending on what our need is for the pension. And the OPEB. I'm sorry. So, if there's no questions, I'll go on to the next page. So we have more tax revenue overview here. So the 21 taxable value minus the Renaissance zone, so there was an increase of 4%. Right, so that is it went from last year, from $1,421,901,034 to $1,480,133,552. So that's what I showed you on the L29. That's what that is right now. So there was an increase in our taxable values. Okay, for our 22 budget, the tax revenues that I have on our budget and throughout is based on the taxable value minus the Renaissance zone, which that's the huge one. We also take off payments in lieu of taxes. That's about $2.8 million. And delinquent personal property taxes, we have to take off any Board of Review adjustments. We don't know. That's just an estimate. Also, the Local Development Finance Authority, or LDFA, so we don't get captured funds on that. So that's why you see when I do my entries, the taxable value used for 2020, which is the tax roll of 2020, which is 21's revenue, was the $1,415,222,192. And the projection for the 21 tax roll is that $1,462,468,756, which gives you an increase from one to the other of 3.3%. Okay. So there's an increase of 3.5 in the total tax revenue. So now we're talking revenues. The total tax revenue from 21, the actual amount that we received after, the delinquent personal property taxes and the LDFA, and this is our settlement amount that we received, was this $20,937,712. And for 22, the budget is $21,668,668. So those are dollar amounts. On the next page, I have a calculation, and I got an error. So I do apologize, but I wanted to show you how you could real quickly do the revenues, the dollar amounts for the revenues based on the taxable value, and you multiply it by the millage. This one, I just used the whole millage and divide it by 1,000, and you would get, not 20, it's 21, which is on page 6. It's a typo. It's 21,668,668. So I apologize. Thanks, Trustee Newman, for finding that for me. I need you to look at these more, look a little closer for me. And edit, yeah. So I read this over and over, and in my mind, it was right. So it's just, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Our administrative tax revenue, those are collected on the property bills. There's 1% of the property taxes. Those are, they don't include any special assessments like street lights, cameras, drain, they don't do that, but on the amount that they have to pay, it's 1%. Those funds are to be used only to offset the assessing department and the Treasury Department's expenditures. So they can only be used for that. And I just put a little note in here that the combination of both of those departments is well over $900,000. So we're very within our limits there. As you see, the next bullet point has the amount that I projected. And it's probably low. I just wanted to be very conservative. So we did have, for 21, the amount was $789,018, and I budgeted 790,000. So any questions on that? Okay, we're going to move on to state shared revenue. The estimates for the state shared revenue for 22 is $5,472,062, which is a 2.6% decrease from the 21 amount of $5,617,900. And then I put a little note in here because it's very difficult to try to budget for them, for the state shared revenues, because they're on a different type of a year than we are. Their actual year, fiscal year runs from October 1st to September 30th. So the projections they give us kind of leave me off 2 months. So I have to assume 2 months. We get 6 payments. So their amount that they have is totaled. And I just make an assumption that the installments for the October payment and the December payment will be the same as what it was at the beginning. So that's kind of the only way I can do it. So it's very conservative. We probably will get a little bit more than this, but I try to be conservative in my number. Yes, Trustee Newman.
I was looking at the state revenue sharing, and I guess I was trying to match it to the amounts in the budget. Like the state revenue sharing for 2022, you have the 5.472 million, but I was looking for the 2021 amount of the 5.617 million on the state revenue sharing line. And, couldn't find it anywhere. Is that the state's numbers? Or?
That's the state's numbers. And,
okay.
And I do have to say, I did try to look and get more current, because they change them all the time. These are projections, and they change them.
Yeah.
So you might not have been able to pull it up, because I didn't get to pull it up.
Okay.
I was able to pull up one for 21 that had 5,744,000. This is from the top of my head.
Okay.
And it was updated on August the 25th, and when I tried to print it out, it wouldn't let me, it was gone.
All right.
So, they're updating these all the time. So the one that I have for the 5,600,000, is it 17?
17.
Yeah, something around there. That one is, I've got paperwork on that one.
Okay.
But once they change them,
Yeah.
that one's gone.
Yeah.
So.
Right. A moving target.
It is. They're projections, and they'll say that they're projections. They're not actual. So that's, so.
And for us in 2021 budget, we thought because of COVID, there would be less sales tax, which is a big part of the formula for state shared revenue, when actually it increased because of the internet sales and.
Yeah, we had budgeted
More people.
4.8 million, And it came in way over, so we were pleased, but we'd rather be more conservative than
an estimate.
to hit a higher mark, because like, again, they change them, and, they don't send you out notices that they're changing them, you just have to go and look on the website at the state.
Giovanna, I had a question. Once the legislature approves their budget with October or end of September, I thought in the new budget it was an increase for state revenue sharing for local municipalities coming up for the 22 year. If they actually do approve that, like you said, you adjust these numbers then?
We could adjust them, but again, if we're conservative and we're lower than what they have, I would prefer to keep it at the lower amount until I actually see what's going to happen. I mean,
That makes sense.
When they give us the numbers, Jimmy, it's all based on sales. There's a lot of factors that go into it, so that's their estimate. They don't guarantee that we're going to get that.
Not a specific dollar amount.
Now, if our budget was more the same months as a state budget, that would help us a lot, and we still would have to
yeah, I still have to,
estimate
yeah.
because it's based on sale. A big portion of it is the sales tax.
And they do change them. Like I said, I go on periodically, and all of a sudden it's changed.
And we'll get a check, and it's way more than what we thought it was, or way less than what we thought, because that has
Right.
happened as well, too.
Exactly. So and to answer your question, no, I usually, if they say we're going to get higher, I'm not going to change it unless it's like millions. But if it's a couple $100,000, I'm not going to change it that way. That's to our advantage, that we get more.
Right.
But if I budget for more and I get less, that's not, we've got to have a workable budget, so.
Thank you.
Okay, then we're getting into the expenditure assumptions. Our biggest expenditures are our wages and our fringes. Any municipality, that's usually the way it goes. And for right now, for 2022, we have not budgeted any increase for the wages for the Ask Me employees, the Teamster employees, court union employees, non-union members, which would be myself, management, and we have not done any increases for that because we are negotiating. I found out the hard way, if you assume and put that in there, then they start off the negotiations by saying, you've got it in there, give us more. So I've learned never to do that until the negotiations are done. And then we'll bring it back to the board. Of course, you all have to approve all the negotiations anyway, and we'll bring it back toward the board, and we'll make a budget amendment at that time. So that's as far as that goes. The union, actually, the fire union has a 2.75% increase for 2022. Their contract runs until 2023. So they will get that, and that is budgeted in the fire, the 2.75 increase. Elected official salaries are set by the board every year, so that has not changed. That's the same as 21 for right now. So the personnel, the fringes, our insurance care, we've not got word back from Blue Cross Blue Shield yet. We did have a slight decrease last year of 0.51% decrease last year. It was very small, but it wasn't an increase. Normally, those are way higher, so we were very excited last year. And I did adjust the budget last year when we got that big decrease, because I usually budget between 15 and 20%. And they base those increases on experience. So our experience, which means, how many people were sick or injured. That's what they do it by. So when we don't know that, and with having the decrease last year, I budgeted for a 20% increase. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen, but that's what I budgeted for. Again, just a projection. Our vision, we did decrease that by 24%. We just switched carriers. That was brought before you, I think, last month. Also, the disability decreased by 24%. and we just switched to a carrier. We were covered the same coverage, just a different carrier. Life insurance, there was no increase, and dental, there was no increase. Yes, Trustee Newman.
This might be somewhere in the budget, but do we know how many total employees the township has?
Yes, but I do not have that in the budget.
Okay.
It's approximately 109, John.
I was going to say 106. But it's
Karen Wallen, our HR
Okay.
manager, is right here, and she said 109, approximately
Fire, court, everybody's about 109.
109?
109.
Okay. Total employees.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Yes, Trustee
Is
Swanson.
the fire union typically out of sync with all the other employees as far as negotiations? Is that something that's?
We try to do
normally the
that so
case?
you don't have all of them coming up all at one time, because it does take a lot of time.
So fire and then everybody else is in a different cycle?
I think Attorney Winters can answer.
talking to the microphone, please, Doug.
I think the ASME court and the ASME employees here are in the same cycle. As far as the Teamsters, I think theirs is pretty much also on the same cycle in terms of ending this year. So those three will be negotiated, as a matter of fact, right now. So between now and end of this year, we expect to have a lot of negotiating meetings.
Thank you. Attorney Winters, thank you for that. All right, and we're going to move on. We're going to go to our general employees MERS pension and the numbers for that. Again, that's a big number. The employer annual required contribution, that's called our ARC, increased from $789,120 in 21 to $895,000 in 22. Percentage change of increase is 13.4% on that. The township's contribution, so we closed one of the buckets for MERS pension because we reduced the calculation from 2.2 multiplier to a 2. So anybody hired after January 1st of 2014 is in a separate bucket, and we closed the other bucket. So that's why you see I've got two calculations here. And the flat rate calculation is for all the older employees that were hired before January 1st of 2012. And that number per each employee in that bucket is moved from $21,375 to $28,536. So it's a huge jump, but we had 8 retirees last year. All that calculates in because it's closed and you only have a certain amount of people there. So we have some legacy cost. The normal cost on this is one amount, and then you've got the legacy cost that you still have to make up. So that's why that number is kind of huge, and you'll see that through departments. For example, my department, I have 3 of us that were hired before that, so my number's really quite high for my budget in my pension. And then in another place like the rec center, they all are new. So they're a very smaller amount. So it's just, you'll see that as we go through. And we did have to change, that was one of the bigger changes for the chart of accounts, is that we had to actually split those up and allocate them into the departments. Before we had one department's other functions that we paid the general fund pension from, just a big lump sum number. Now we have to have it through every department. So that was a big change. Workers' comp had to go through that as well. So I just thought of that as we were talking, just to let you know those were a couple of the big changes. And we'll get into that when we do the general fund overview. We'll go line by line on those. And then if you have questions on that, we'll work on that. The employees hired after January 1st of 2014, our contribution is based on their wages, and that did increase from 4.27% to 4.76%. So any questions as far, yes, trustee Newman?
I'm still kind of foggy on the ARC, the increase, the 13.4% increase. Was that because of the retirees or?
Yeah, they take both of these into account, both the buckets into account. They're separated on the actuarial report, and then your combined amount of your ARC, which is the annual required contribution they come up with. Again, that's based on a lot of the assumptions, and I've got the assumptions at the bottom of the page here. But so, with saying that, they base that on a lot of things, but with that shrinking amount, and we have more people retiring in the legacy, it just went up. So, on the actuarial report, so our actual report we just received was for 2020. We did have that. And then the numbers on 2020, they give us estimates for 22. So it's always it's a 2-year lag. So the amounts that you'll see that I have in here were from 19's amount for 21, 22. Does that make, I'm sorry, that didn't come out right. It's always 2 years behind, or 2 years ahead.
The actuarial gives
The
you,
actuarial report tells us the ARC, so the 20 report for the actuarial report gives us the information for 22. So there's always a lag there,
and every 2 years, we do the,
OPEB actuarial report.
Yeah.
Every year you have to have the pension report, and every 2 years you're required to have the OPEB actuarial report.
and what the actuarial highfalutin people did, they changed
The assumptions.
the assumptions, like how long we're going to live. So when they changed the assumption on how long a person's going to live, that increased the ARC payment, because they say they had 72, which was an age previously, and now it's 80.
Yes.
So it increases, people are living longer, so you have to increase the ARC. Then what else did they increase? Oh, the investment rate. We argued that one year, but
That was for fire.
all these assumptions are by people who study it, and they end up changing based on how long people are living, what's the investment rate, and every time they change anything in the assumptions, which is done every year and every 2 years, then it affects our number. So we were trying to be funded at a higher level, but every time we get funded at a higher level, they put a different assumption on it, so we drop back down. It's perpetual, but
Right. And so you can see on here, our funded ratio decreased from 71% in 19 to 69% in 2020, and that had a lot to do with the mortality table. That one was a big one that caused that ARC to go up so much.
I just have a question. Sorry. So if the township doesn't have pensions anmirore for people hired after?
yeah, we do.
Oh, really? Okay.
We have pensions.
Pensions you do, it's the OPEB healthcare, right? Retiree healthcare is different. That's on the next page, and we can go over that.
Okay.
But this one is the pension itself.
So I guess I was trying to figure that the 109 employees are taking care of all of the retirees.
Yes, that's the legacy portion of it. So you've got a normal portion and you've got a legacy portion. The actual reports I don't have
Okay.
on here. They are on our website
Yeah.
under our HR department. They're quite lengthy, but the normal is what it would cost right then, and then the legacy is added on. So that's why those numbers are kind of huge, because of course you have to, legacy, if you change the mortality rate, people are going to, who retired, or, you've got to take care of them, so it's,
Right.
it does make that go up.
I thought it all went together, yeah,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
Well, I think what you do, though, is you take both cost and you put it, so if there was a legacy cost in the clerk's office, then you would take the total number.
they take
and divide it by the 106 employees or 109. Is that full-time, or does that include part-time?
That includes part-time.
That it does include part-time,
That also includes the firefighters who are not part of this pension plan.
right.
They have their own pension plan.
Is there 29 in that one? There are 29 active. Well, chief. Well, the chief's in the pension too, right? Oh, there's chief. 27?
It's also on the dashboard. There's a dashboard that the state requires us to do every year, and it's on the state dashboard as well.
Yeah. And
Which
again,
is good.
And we have to do that state dashboard in order to get the portion of the state shared revenue for the cities, township, and villages. That's the two numbers I had split in there. I didn't go over those, but we have to have that dashboard in order to get that money. It's over $500,000 a year, so we want to make sure we do that.
So I think what the state's doing, which is good, is making sure that everyone is more transparent
Correct.
at the state level. And they have to, the numbers are the same, so you can look up people's budget in different communities. And I'm going to send the appropriation report from Washoe County, which I found what the tax levies are. So I'll send that, so you guys know where to look for that. John, I'm sure you know where that was at, right? So why'd you have me look at it? No, I'm kidding, honey. I'm kidding. That was a joke. I'm just.
So, is there any more questions on the general MERS pension before we move on to the general OPEB retirement? All right, so this is the other post-employment benefits, our OPEB. This is our retirees for our employees, retire health care. And again, we did close this out. So we only have a certain amount of people in here that are active, that are paying for the rest of us and the legacy. So it kind of goes the same way. The arc on this one, however, you can see the decrease starting on this one. And the decrease was 3.7. It went from 515,006 to 496,319 in 22. So that one did go down. It is closed for anyone who's hired after January 1st of 14. All the eligible employees, the active employees, I have budgeted at 16,011 for each one of those individuals. So that because there's less than 30 people, you have to just spread that amongst the active that are involved. The actuarial report, we have a funded ratio increase on this one. So our fund balancing increased from 51.6% in 18, remember these are kind of always behind, to 62.7 in the 2019 report. The asset valuation, I did not go over that on the other page. The asset valuation, what we actually have in that one is $7,580,110, and the unfunded liability is the $4,503,310. Should I go over the pension? If we turn back to the other page, I didn't go over that. I'm sorry. Can we go? So, yes. So the asset valuation, it's the last bullet point. It says asset valuation. So the assets that we have are $18,566,300 in the MERS pension, and our unfunded liability is $8,303,879. I did not get a chance to say that, but that's what that was. All right, for our employees hired after January 1st of 2014, we have a healthcare savings account that we have established for them. That is through MERS. And we actually, the township's contribution is $1,300 per employee. The total budget from 21 was $57,200. And in 22, we have budgeted $63,700. That's because there's an increase of employees, and that is an 11% increase. Any questions on that one? Okay, the next one is the fire pension. The employer ARC on this one decreased from $1,074,669 in '21 to $975,040 in '22. So we did see a decrease on that. The amount contributed to the pension in '21, we did have extra that we had collected. Anything that we collect, I do have to send that in. It's only for one purpose. It's for pension and OPEB. So this one was a little higher because I had just a little bit of extra. And you'll see that on the actual budget amendment today. I had to actually ask, I think it's 19,000, but we'll see that on the budget amendment because we had extra. We can't leave a fund balance. We have to, that's what our residents are paying for. That's what it's collected for. All right, which was a little bit slightly higher than the budgeted amount of $1,172,010. The percentage change from the actual paid in '21 to the budgeted amount in '22 is a decrease of 18%. Funded ratio increased from 76.61% in '19 to 83.69% in 2020. So that one is going the right way. The fire pension is going the right way. Now, the asset valuation, $31,296,842, and the unfunded liability is $6,100,088. And the assumptions and the method used are still impacting some increases. Again, we had to, the return rate went from 7.5 to 6.5 2 years ago. And and again, the new mortality tables. Any questions on the fire pension? Then we have the fire OPEB. The ARC for the fire OPEB for '21 was $666,513, and we budgeted and paid $700. I didn't want to go lower, so we budgeted the $700,000 to decrease the unfunded liability because the amount that we collected, the millage that we had there. Again, so the ARC for '22 is $635,017 and is budgeted for $642,476, so just a little bit slightly higher of what I have on my projection for the revenue, and I made the expenditures equal what I assumed that we were going to get so that they balance each other. So, and that might be even higher depending on my assumptions for the tax revenues. The percentage change from the budget was a decrease of 8%. The funded ratio increased from 49.9% in 19 to 67.7 in 2020. Again, those are good numbers for that. The state actually on the OPEB, they like you to be above 45. Is it 45? 45% funded, so we're well above that. So we hit that a while ago. The asset valuation, we have $8,544,128, and the unfunded liability is $4,080,058. And again, this one is a closed OPEB. That's why you see the amounts are going down. Anybody hired after December 31st of 2013 are not eligible for the healthcare retirement pension portion. Then we do have the healthcare savings, provides for those employees, and the township contribution increased from $4,680 per firefighter in '21 to $5,330 per firefighter in '22, and that's per their contract. And so the total went from $46,800 to $63,960 for an increase of 3.6%. Yes, Trustee Swanson.
Does that mean that healthcare savings plan helps them with healthcare after they retire? Is that the purpose of that?
Yes.
So they have something
So they'll have something,
that they're building towards.
yes.
That the unions and the non-union can do a healthcare savings account separate, right? like when they retire, if they have extra PTO time, they can put into a healthcare savings account? Or they used to?
At certain points. They can only do it if they're leaving employment, they can roll over PTO, or if they're over our annual
Right,
accrual
our
amount
annual,
every
right.
year. Contracts basically say if they're over what we allow them to accrue and carry over every year, that overage automatically goes into a healthcare savings account for them. So they
At
can't
100%?
just- They can't just say they want to put so much into it. There's certain guidelines, and that's because IRS is so strict on if one employee does it, then the entire group has to do the same thing. So it's only done with PTO time at this point.
Yes, Trustee Peterson?
Thank you. And I was reading that, I think it's 380 is the tap. Is that amount they could tap for PTO time? 360, thank you. So at that point, depending what their contract negotiated, can they sell back? I believe they could sell back if there's a hardship or something, and if they go over 380. It's possible they could go over 380, right?
Yeah, you need, if you go to the microphone.
Could you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
I didn't know if she heard me or not.
Yeah, I did. So the contracts do allow, and our policy does allow for the employees to ask for a buyout of PTO time, a maximum of 180 hours a year, and that is at 75%.
Right.
Okay? So if they do that, that works that number down, okay, so that they're not over it.
Right.
But those payouts that we do at 75% does not go toward their retirement.
Yes. You
Okay.
just get that in cash, is that correct?
Correct.
And is that once a year, or when they're just over the limit?
No, they can ask for it more than once a year, but we
Okay.
do have a max of the 180. And a lot of times that is the budget amendments that Joe brings forward for PTO payouts. We get requests that come into the office, then the 3 full-time officials approve those, and then I give the numbers to Joe as to what, how much they're asking, so that it can be, a budget amendment can be
And
brought
then
back to the
if
board.
not, they have an option of that money going in some kind of health bank.
Correct. If they do not take it at 75% and get it below that 360,
Right.
then anything above that 360 goes 100% into the healthcare savings account with MERS.
We do not have a lot of people that take advantage of that.
No,
Really? Okay.
no.
So they basically would take their money?
We really, now, we used to have more. There's probably 5, 6, maybe, that are at that point that they can be over that 360. Everybody else is below that 360. So,
Yeah, okay, thank you.
sure.
All right, so we are actually going to review our bike path, sidewalks, recreation budget, and I've got assumptions here. If you're in your book, I don't know, if you're in your book, if your budget book, it's page 76. The board review, the packet, it's on page 176. So if I don't know which one you're using, so. And again, we go over these line by line. We've got the account numbers for revenue, all the account numbers for revenue. I'm sorry, I need to speak in the thing. And then we actually have the footnotes right underneath explaining what each of those funds are for. So the highlights on the revenue, the property tax projection that I have is, and again, I put too many commas in there. That's really not a number up there. It should be 1,471,097. I just went a little crazy with my comma. It was an increase of 5.6 over the 21 actual amount of 1,392,978. So are budgeting higher. We have a grant for Huron Pathway budgeted at 150. The grant should come in at 150. This is for project part 1, phase 1. And the contributions from the general fund are budgeted at $307,500. And this amount is coming over for the road debt bond. The general fund always had given the BSR 2 fund half of the principal and the interest, because that's where the debt was paid out of this fund, BSR 2 fund. This is the final payment. We are at the final payment here. So is there any questions on the revenues? There's not a whole lot going on there. Expenditures, we have budgeted $40,000 for repairs to the parks. There's 2 lines, one for all other parks and one for Ford Lake Park, 20 apiece. So $40,000, and that's for mulch, just general type of repair that comes up. And then we have budgeted $50,000 for repairs to the sidewalk and dust control in there. And then we budgeted contributions to the recreation fund to cover operations. Whenever we cannot end in a negative budget. So this fund has been supplying the recreation fund and the golf course fund as well. So the recreation is going to need $373,507. It is a decrease from 2021. And the budget amount for the golf course, what is needed to transfer the golf course, is $215,732, which is an increase of 16.8% from last year's budget amount of $184,650. I do want to say right now, I've not had to move any of that money over yet to the golf course. I only move those funds when it's negative. So usually these adjustments happen right in December. With the recreation center, though, I have moved most of what we had budgeted over because their losses are so great there, and then they have all of their wages and fringes that they still have to do. There's nothing extravagant, no projects, but basically it's wages, fringes. And then I wanted to say, let's see, they budgeted $321,000 for the expenditure for the phase 1 for the Huron Pathway. The township will pay the portion of $171,000, and the grant is the $150,000. So we have that budgeted, and then also we budgeted for the debt obligation, which I went over that one for the County Road Commission. The principal is $600,000. The interest this year is $15,000. It is the final payment. I don't know if you needed any other information on those. Any questions?
Yes, Giovanna.
Yes, Trustee Wilson.
What was the original bond on that?
$6 million.
$6 million?
So it's $6 million, 10 years. I did write down a couple of information things for you. The total interest that we have paid or will have paid by this last payment is $711,917. The interest rate that we had on that bond, I'm sorry, $711,917 was the total interest for the whole time. And we did know that was on our reports when we did the bond, so we knew pretty much what was going to be paid in interest. And then the interest rate for 2 years, the first 2 years was 1%. The second, or the next group of 6 years was at 2%, and the last 2 years was at 2.5%. So we got really good rate on the bond. I think that's why we went out for that bond. So just some facts for you there.
Thank you.
So,
Trustee Peterson?
yeah, I'm sorry. So this debt, this bond, this is the last final payment.
Yes,
That's beautiful.
yes. Happy dance.
Yeah.
I mean, one down, like.
No,
one
it's done. It's
No, it's-
600 and some thousand dollars a year we were paying every year out of.
Yeah, but I was saying that sometimes people might have 5 bonds out there or whatever, 3 bonds that we're going to pay off and pay one off.
Right,
It's
yeah.
always a great thing.
So
Can you hear me?
we do this, we have done it historically. Ron Allen was the first supervisor who did it, but 6 million was the largest amount we've ever done. We normally do 3 million. And so we have to decide, it goes through the road commission, and we just have to decide, should we just pay every year as opposed to paying 700,000 in interest? What is the interest? There's lots of variables. The county passed a millage since we did this $6 million bond that does our primary roads. And we need to focus on the subdivision roads and start getting our subdivisions, because the county passed a millage for the primary, then they stopped doing any work in the subdivision. So you make one step forward, then you go back 2 steps. So hopefully.
So, Madam Supervisor, are you saying that eventually they're going to get to the side streets and
They won't do.
residence
Yeah.
area?
The subdivision roads, which are non-primary, your primary is like Huron River Drive,
Yeah.
Textile, Whitaker, Huron Street, yada, yada, Forest Avenue, Grove is an MDOT road, but the millage that the voters approved is only used on primary, and then Washoe County used to do the subdivision roads, but they stopped doing that, and so now local government, some people do special assessment, but normally we just invest in them every year. We spend anywhere from, in addition to the bond millage, in addition to the millage on the road commission, Ypsilanti Township does anywhere between $300,000, $500,000, $600,000 every year in roads. So we really invest in our infrastructure.
Joe, I just wanted to make sure I had it. You had said 6% for years 3 to 8. What was the interest rate for the middle years? I got the other 2.
6 years at 2%.
The 2%, okay. I knew that couldn't have been right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the last one was 2.5.
Last 2 years was 2.5. So that's your 10 years.
It's supposed to be 1.75 when we did the bond, so. That's why we did it. It's like, we said, well, that's a good opportunity, right? The interest rate is so low. So we doubled the amount we normally would do. So the board will decide on, do we do another bond, or do we just continue to invest in, the communities that are needed for the roads?
All right. Is there any other questions on the BSR2 fund? Any projects? If there's any big projects, and I'm thinking, we do have a capital project list. They're in different places, but we do have them. I do know that we did need to do the dock at the Ford Lake for safety reasons. I don't know if that's been done. I'm not the project manager, so that might have to be something that's coming back to you, and it would be in this fund that they would pick that up in. So just an FYI, that everything always comes back to the board.
And we apply for grants and.
Yeah, so what's out there, so we kind of wait to see what we can get before we even budget it, those type of things. For any of the capital projects, usually we just bring those back to you at that time for a budget amendment and for your approval, if it's something that the board would like. Any other questions on this one? All right. So the next fund that we have is our parks, and is that the list? How did I have that on the list here? Did I have the parks or the CARES one next? Okay, good. So the parks is Fund 208. That is in your budget book on page 74 or in the packet on page 180. Whichever one you're using. This is not a very big fund. The revenues on this fund are generated from the racquetball court. I don't know why that is. We've just decided to do that, and it's been this way since I've been here for the 11 years. just to get a little revenue in there so that we can pay the salaries for the commissioners. Couple little things. There's really not a whole lot of expenditures going on. Got the salaries for the elected officials. You can see we've got budgeted 8,100. Last year, we only used 4,200. They do get paid if they are attending the meetings, if they've attended the meetings. So. Any questions on this park fund? It's very small. Okay, the next fund I'm very excited about. This is a new fund, and I do have to get your approval for this fund, but the auditor wanted us to actually have a separate fund for the CARES Act grant and the ARPA grant, which is the American Rescue Plan, the funds that we did get. We're going to put them in a separate fund so that we can track those. And that's what this is right here. So it's I just labeled it the CARES Act Fund, and it's number 282. And this is for purpose of tracking just specifically this fund. We've got quite a large amount of money. We want to make sure we track it. We do have a single audit coming up for 21 because we're over the threshold of 750,000 in a grant, federal grant, so we will require a single audit. Just kind of let you know where we're at on that.
When is that audit?
That audit will be at the year end, so December 31st, we'll have to have a single audit. We'll have to have a single audit for the next year as well because we're receiving this CARES grant in two parts. So the first part we received already, it's $4,719,513, so we already have received that. That amount I've transferred over to this fund. It is in it's in a liability account, an unearned revenue. It's really not, we don't put it in a revenue until you have the expenditures to match, and that would all be brought before the board. Any expenditures that we do, we would see a budget amendment for the expenditure, and we would see a budget amendment to move the revenue from the unfunded, the unearned revenue to revenue. So, and I did put some numbers in here so that we could actually just see it on the BSR. So I budgeted the new amount that we're supposed to get in 22. I budgeted it as a revenue and expenditure just so that it would come up. If I don't put a number in, it's not, on the BSA system, it will not run through. So I did put numbers on there. So it is budgeted for that second one, but really when it comes in, it has to go to the unearned revenue and a liability, and then as the board decides what we're going to be doing with these funds, we'll be moving them. And that will all come back toward, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So is there
one last question on that. And is it currently in a interest-bearing account?
It is just in our regular bank account.
Okay.
We are not earning a whole lot of interest because the banks are just not paying a whole lot of interest right now. We do have a meeting with Huntington Bank, which does most of our banking, and we'll talk from there. Treasurer Eldridge has made that appointment, and he's on top of that and what we can do to invest those funds safely and securely, then we can keep those investments that we do make.
I have a question.
Yes, Trustee Peterson.
So we received one payment, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
4 million, and I guess we're expecting to get another 4-point-something million.
Yes, ma'am.
So has any money been used out of this count?
No, ma'am.
So this count would be basically for the coronavirus issues or emergency issues of something of that sort?
Yes, it's very regulated. They don't have the rules all set yet. You can reclaim lost revenues, which we have a calculation on that. It was, I don't have that off the top of my head. It was almost 722,000. However, we've not done anything, just the calculation. I did have to report to the Federal Reserve in August 31st. I had to report that we received the funds and that we had lost revenue, but we have not done anything And we're not going to do anything. It's very regulated. If you do something wrong,
Someone's going to jail.
it's not, yeah, it's very, very regulated as to what you can spend it in, so we have to be very careful of what they have. And again, the rules are not, how would you say that, Attorney Winters? They're not
Adopted, they're not final.
yet.
Yeah, the Treasury hasn't provided the actual guidelines on it
They're
yet.
interim,
That's
they're
what I
interim
was going to
rules.
say. That's what I was going to say. Have they put together a stipulation, actually what you could spend this money on? And then also, if you don't spend the money.
You'll give it back.
Do you give it back?
Oh, yeah. If you don't spend it in the proper way, you would have to give it back.
I mean, just can't sit there.
We went out to bid and brought it to the board for services, to help manage these funds and to have community engagement. Only accounting firms, which we do need an accounting firm, but only accounting firms actually bid on it. So, and it didn't include community engagement. They did not have experience in that, so. No, yeah. Yeah, it had it in there, but the only people they didn't address community engagement. It was only accounting firms that bid on it. So there is recommended by our auditor that we go
Yes.
out and look for.
Planners, so
Engineers
civil engineers,
Yeah.
basically, because they actually have the knowledge that they deal with federal grants all the time to make sure that you have Davis-Bacon rules applying, all the rules that you have to have set forward for any federal grant,
And community engagement.
and community engagements as well. But the thing is, as Raina Emmons from PSLZ, that's our auditor, she had said there's a front end and a back end. And the front end would be your civil engineers to do all the community engagement, to find out what projects would benefit from your plan, your master plan. And then the back end would be accountants to do the project. Again, we may not need all the accountants if I have the right engineers getting all the information gathered for the federal grant. So I think we probably,
So I'll just share that we, just as Supervisor Stumbo and Accounting Director Neal explained, we actually met with Raina Emmons, who's done all of our auditing for the last, I don't know, since a decade. PLZS has done our
Post Smythe, Lutz and Zeal.
Yes.
They've been our auditors for 40 years.
long time, so we got a good relationship with them. And so through that, we kind of we gave her those RFPs that we received, and I think we received in 4. And we just had her look over them because she's someone that we trust, who also has a close relationship with Joe, with Brenda, and, the whole township with Doug. And so she still looked them over. We did put that community engagement piece in the bid when we went out. So I just wanted to, make sure that was understood. But again, they're accounting firms, and like Raina kind of explained, that's more back-end work. And until I heard it in those terms, I was like, oh, I get that. So recently, I think 2 weeks ago, Treasurer Eldridge, myself, and Attorney Winters, and Giovanna, and Raina met just to go over, we said, well, we'll still look at them. She said, I'm happy to, and we'll see if they can offer anything else. And, the determination was kind of like, nah, there's nothing real exciting in those. They don't specialize in communications. They don't specialize in planning. And so then we just kind of went back and forth and discussed a few different options of what kind of firms could help us do that. And of course, we, typically work with Carlisle Wortman as our planner anyways, and we have a long-standing relationship with them as well. And of course, we have our engineers that we've used, Spicer, OHM, and those guys that we use for lots of things. And so the conclusion of that meeting was kind of well, let's, talk about the lost revenue, because it was needed for the report that was filed on August 31st by Joe. Thank you so much, Joe. And I'm sure Brenda had to submit her driver's license again to do that, because it's very serious, the reporting of all of that, because it's a federal grant. And so we're just going to kind of, wait to see what the actual rules are. There's lots of talking about the ARPA funds. There's lots of webinars that are good and great. I just, we're just kind of gonna hang tight for a second, take a big breath and pause. And I think generally speaking in life, when you just pause and wait a minute to see how the things shake out, things turn out okay. And, you know, we just want to be cautious and not promise people what we can use the funds for because we don't know what we can use them for yet. So there's a lot of talk about, oh, we want it for this and we want it for that, but we don't want to tell anyone or assume that we want to use them in that way or that our residents want us to use them in that way until we know for sure that they can be dedicated for those uses. So what we know right now is they can be used for water, sewer, and broadband. And there's a couple other smatterings in there, but those are the big bullet points. So water, sewer, and broadband.
What is broadband?
That is a great, I asked the same thing to our IT guy. So broadband is like an actual like wired utility that you can like hook up to at the side of the road, the same way that you would hook up to like water and sewer, but you have to have that main line of broadband
For internet.
wire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's not the same thing as Wi-Fi. Travis had to give me a little breakdown about what broadband.
It's a hard wire.
It's embarrassing. But yes.
Fiber optic.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yes, a fiber optic wire. And so anyways, I don't want to carry on about it, but we just generally talked about those things. And so I've heard across, you know, our country and news outlets and in our county even, like all the different uses that people think that these things can be used for. And I don't know what rule they're reading because it's not final yet. It's the interim final rule is what it's called.
I got it.
And we do have a lot of time. We have until the 2024 to make plans to use it, to encumber it, and 26 to finish the project. So we've got time. So this is not a rush that we have to make these decisions on. So I think we're very wise to just take our time and make sure we do it right.
Right. And every web meeting that we've had, everything that is published said, do not rush, take your time, and there's no need to hurry right now. Oh, you can't without the rules anyways.
Right. And I do want to say, though, I do have to bring in new procurement policies to you, financial policies. We're working on them. Clerk Rowe was very nice, and she did some editing for me on the packet that I have. It's quite lengthy. I do have to include federal grant procurement policy in there as well, which I have not done as of yet. We've got copies from the governmental financial organization. We just copy that in. Just make sure that we have all the steps. That has to be done before the end of the year because that's required for a single audit. So that's one thing that I'll be working on again this fall. So hopefully I'll have that to you in October, early November, so you guys can take a look at it and give me your thoughts, and if anybody wants to edit, that'd be great. Actually, this concludes.
Just one thing that, like with the broadband, I think it's really important, and not that we are going to decide what it's going to be spent on, but I do think it's really important that we know other projects. So I know the county has a project where they're working with Ann Arbor, and any infrastructure you do, it's going to be easier to do infrastructure when you have a plan that could be added on or extended or whatever. So it's very important. I know Supervisor Stumbo has asked repeatedly for information about that broadband project, and it's imperative that we know where it's going to go because it's only going to make things easier for us should we decide that that's a priority, which is very close to the opportunity index areas, that people, municipalities or other units of government are sharing that information with us. We don't want to reinvent things if we can be planning to add on to things. So I appreciate Supervisor Stumble for asking repeatedly for that information. I don't feel like she's been given what's needed for us to be as proactive as possible.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. And they are allocated 15 million, right? I think at their last meeting, Ways and Means for broadband, internet infrastructure improvement. Our issue in Ypsilanti Township, and I think other areas as well, is people can't afford it. So, I mean, you have all this high-speed internet, but you can't really afford because we need more public Wi-Fi to be available in neighborhoods. So that would be maybe a good opportunity to see if they've studied that because you can run it all you want. If you can afford it, that's great, because it's over, what, $200 to have, you know, Comcast, AT&T. We don't have AT&T on the south side, I know it all. So there's no competition for Comcast. So anyways, I just don't know what their plan is, and like Debbie says,
Just gather
I keep asking
information.
for it.
I just wanted to share too on that line, is that SEMCOG has a really good tool. I don't know that I always, like, it's hard to understand where their data came from, but if you look at their map, you can actually click on whatever it is you're looking at. So in this case, if you looked at high-speed internet, which again, I'm still understanding, is that broadband or isn't it? But in any case, it tells you by municipality or area even, I think it's broken out by zip code actually, which directly matches the opportunity index, how many people have access to it. But again, access is different than paying for it.
affordability.
So, I mean, you could compare that with the socioeconomic chart and see what that looks like, but I
And the
think we
county
know.
talked about giving more dollars for affordability for so many years. But it was this small compared to the infrastructure amount.
Is there any more questions on the, yes, trustee Newman?
When everyone was speaking about CPA firms, was any one of them found that specialized in like nonprofit or government?
I remember, I think every one of the four had some government or nonprofit experience. That actually might have even been a requirement. I'd have to read the RFP again. But, you know, so they do have governmental experience, but like Raina Edmonds and their firm that is representatives for 40 years, they have that same experience. And we were looking for something a little more about, you know, how to connect with the community, engage in the community, think about broader plans, or even, as Debbie was referring to, connecting or having your ear to the ground about knowing those other projects going on. And so, you know, just unfortunately, I think collectively we've sort of, you know, flushed out that a CPA firm is not the right profession to do that front-end work.
Right, because what's happening is we need boots on the ground here, and a lot of those firms were not from this area. We need somebody to interview employees for that Davis-Bacon. There's things that you have to follow before you even start using the funds, you know, with the contractors, and there has to be steps for that, and that's what we kind of need help with. The back end, and when Raina explained this, she had said the back end is for the CPAs. You gather all the information, and guess who has to copy all the information and give it to her? I do. So if I have to do that, because I do the grants right now with, you know, I work with Tara Cohen at the county, and I give her all those information. But the engineers actually get the information from the contractor. So again, I could see where we were saying, I'm going to have to get that information one way or another. So we may not need to spend a lot of money on an accounting firm to do that when I have to copy everything and give to them. So, you know, we'll work on it and see, you know, that's in the back of our mind, but it made a lot of sense when she was talking because we needed more help with the front part of the projects.
And I just wanted to clarify too, you know, if we do this, Raina Edmonds and their firm would be auditing and helping us with the auditing process.
Correct.
Which is not the most important, but it's a very important piece of managing the funds. Like the most important piece is how we're going to make a huge impact to our residents with the funds. But, you know, from the back side of the work, we have to make sure that we're very detailed in how we've spent the money, you know, and logging that like meticulously. And so I just wanted to be clear that that firm would be helping us with our audits, but not administering the grant. That would be something that we can discuss at a later time and maybe use like Carlisle Wortman or OHM or Spicer, whoever, to handle the engineering piece of things and the planning part of things, but not the
accounting portion.
the accounting portions of it, just to keep them separate, because it's important to do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one comment to what Trustee Swanson was talking about too, because this opportunity index is one that we continue to try and, I don't know if this Supervisor Stumble carries her maps everywhere we go, showing the disparity between eastern Washtenaw County and western Washtenaw County. And last year, Lester Holt from NBC News did a special showing in the city of Detroit that during the pandemic that somewhere like 90%, 95% of the kids in Grosse Pointe that are actually right on the border of the city of Detroit were able to continue with their studies because they had the broadband, the internet, the computers. They were actually given laptops to take home with them, while just a few miles down Jefferson, they had a young lady who actually attended Cass Tech, and she was at home with her younger siblings, could not get connectivity. It was hit and miss all the time. And they were having to share one computer. And I bring that up because in the context of the Opportunity Index, and you've seen the letters that have been written in regards to how that also plays out in the YMCA, Eastern Washtenaw County Rec Facility. During that meeting we had with county officials and rec people, I don't think Brenda or Heather or Stan or even myself could have been even clearer as to what has to be done by the county to show leadership if they really truly mean what they say. And I know Debbie's being a school teacher would know firsthand that if you have an advantage of starting at the 50-yard line by having that broadband and that tech savviness with you, that the kids that don't have that advantage and are just always constantly playing catch-up. And so I think right now that this may be an opportunity to really not miss an opportunity in terms of these funds and how they're going to be allocated, because everything I have always regretted in your own personal and professional life are things you do in haste. But I do think the broadband really is something that has to really be honed in. Am I not talking to that? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'll just say everything I just said, I'd say again. But I would just say that the broadband is something that I think really is going to make a difference in many, for the next generation or two of young kids going through school. Because if they don't get into the colleges of their choice because they can't compete, we're not going to break some of these cycles. And I hope that the county really understands that here's the township loud and clear that from a leadership standpoint, this board has to be the one to really make that demand, because I don't think it's going to be one that's going to be granted to us without pressing hard for that Opportunity Index to mean something more than just another report that gets shelved as time goes on. So I've enjoyed those meetings with this full-time officials and everyone about these funds and opportunities it could lead to, but that one just came to mind because of what Trustee Swanson said about the broadband. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Joe
I'm
and
finished. There's no more
John.
questions.
Good job.
We'll see you next meeting.
So at the next meeting, we'll send out a list of the funds we're going to do in advance, so you can look at it in your budget and then ask questions if you want in advance. Thank you. All right, we're going to move into, if it's okay, agenda review. We have the consent agenda. Any questions or comments? Attorney's report. Did you want? Under new business, we have the request approval of renewable energy credits. And we do this every year with our hydro funds, or not our hydro funds, our energy credits from our hydro. And it lessens the carbon footprint. The second item, and Belinda Kingsley is here, who is the Director of Community Compliance, and she has on the agenda the request to authorize Circuit Court for a public nuisance at 2381 Parkwood. Belinda, I don't know if you want to come up here. Are there any questions on this? I know we discussed it at the last meeting, this fine developer went in and just clear cut property, and then we told them to stop, and they did more. So this is a request to go authorize circuit court action, and basically, that's really tall, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, is it even on? You can probably hear me anyways, but that's okay.
So if there's,
All right. All right, so, good evening, board. I don't know if there were any questions that you had. That was a good
and
summary.
just give your
of-
name
Oh.
for the record, because the person who does the minutes, they're not here.
Oh, okay. Belinda Kingsley, Director of Community Compliance.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Are there
So-
questions on this agenda item? I know Debbie, trustee Swanson went out and looked at it. It's on Parkwood, and it's an industrial site.
Yes, and they have called, several people have called and asked us for what would need to be done to clear cut this, to prepare it to be able to sell or develop, and we've consistently given the same message in the planning department that they need to have a site plan reviewed and approved before they start doing any type of excavation or, woodlands type work. So they found somebody who didn't contact us and just moved ahead and started doing it. And at this point, it's pretty much all clear cut, and we just need to stop them from moving forward with their plan to park 100 plus semi-trucks on the site. And that was based on a complaint from a neighbor that came in and advised us of their plans. So we just want it to stop and not go any further. And so the emergency verified petition to declare property a public nuisance for issuance of a temporary restraining order, or in the alternative, an order to show cause, preliminary injunction, and other relief was filed. And everybody has been served. We actually just, before coming down here, I saw we had an email from one of the parties that were named, and he was parked out there doing some bulldozing, but wasn't. He says he wasn't the contractor hired to do the work. And he's aware that there's a hearing on Thursday and wants to contact us about that. So we'll talk to him tomorrow. I did send it over to your office.
Yeah, if I could just add, and sometimes I think, I've told the board this many times, is that sometimes we get used to moving so quickly that we don't always just take a moment and just kind of reflect. But from the time this came to the township's attention and Belinda's attention and full-time officials, and emergency authorization was granted, Denny was able to file the lawsuit, get the photographs, get the injunction, and as you can see, all within about a 5 days period. And I'm just saying this just because of the fact that I know we sometimes just kind of get used to these things happening that fast, but it's only because we have a great teamwork where the 3 full-time officials are acting in concert, and they say, yes, go ahead administratively, your green light. The OSC department goes out, gets the photographs, and gets the reports prepared. Jenny and Diane from our office, they then are very good at getting the complaint filed and getting it into the system. I just wish in cases like this, and maybe it's still possible, that we could get the Washtenaw County Resource Commissioner to join in with us, because this does impact all kinds of issues of soil erosion and everything else that also is in their wheelhouse as well. So we may reach out to them to see if ask before to have them join in on cases like this. But this one here is probably one of the worst ones we've seen since the farm pond out there on Rolling Hills Meadow back about 25 years ago. But anyways, I just want to give a lot of thanks to the officials and Linda's team and Denny, my law partner, for being able to move so quickly and actually get an order entered. So anybody that contacts your office, please refer them to Denny.
Yeah, I just sent him the email, so he'll have that in the morning, but,
Okay. All right. Thanks.
yeah.
Belinda, would you like to just tell them we have 3 new ordinance?
Yeah, we had 3 new ordinance officers that started today. We'd interviewed, we interviewed 9 out of 17 that applied. We had quite a few well-qualified candidates, and it was a tough decision, but we narrowed it down to 3. So all the positions are filled in the ordinance department, and they started their training today. So we're, I stressed to them how, it's such a vote of confidence that the board, has authorized the approval of the, these positions, and now we've been able to fill them. Some of them have been vacant for a while, and that in return, we have to show some good results. We're going to hit the ground and, get some things taken care of that haven't been taken care of just because of the lack of manpower through the pandemic. And everybody's excited. They're all excited. We're excited. So I think we'll see some results. So, yeah.
And 2 were township residents, right?
Yep, 2 are township residents. Yep. So, and they all expressed today how excited they are to work for the township, and they've heard great things about the township, and it's just real.
I know you
Real
and
nice.
HR and Christy and was doing Robin,
Yeah,
doing a lot of onboarding today. And
yeah. Today and tomorrow, we kind of set up a orientation schedule, and we had them doing different types of meetings for half a day, and then out riding, buddied up with one of the existing ordinance members, and they, to not overwhelm them with just meetings all day long. So,
in the past, we'd say go, just
Yeah,
go do it, but
yeah.
we really.
no, that's, today they got their car assignments and all that information from RS, and they met with IT. Tomorrow is HR and safety. So.
RSD, who also helped get the vehicles. I mean, it really, and they moved the ordinance staff, which was during the virus, they had to be separated, so they were moved down to
They're in the
the
lower level.
14B court area, and there was just total separation, so now they're all back together,
Yep.
and
We're moving everybody back
maintenance.
upstairs.
Yeah,
and,
the maintenance staff, IT,
Yeah.
I mean, so many people just came together to
Yeah,
make sure.
everybody's had to help and try to get this moved forward. So it'll be nice to have them all back upstairs and working as a team with the rest of the township instead of kind of isolated down there by themselves
With no windows,
with no windows.
so it's good. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's there's been a lot of work getting them onboarded with vehicles that have sat for months and not been driven. So now we know you got to start your vehicles, and even if nobody's using it, and drive them around the parking lot a couple times. So it's we're learning a lot. So,
They did. Thank God we just didn't put them in the vehicles.
yeah,
It wouldn't have worked.
2 out of 3 couldn't even be driven because they'd sat.
Debbie?
So what's our relief sought? I mean, they've gone in and they've done exactly what they wanted to do. So how do we make sure that as a community, entities aren't allowed to come in and just break the norms, break the rules, get what they want, and then,
Right.
oh, we're sorry? Like, what do we do there?
Well, there's a financial penalty involved. It can be very severe with the violation of the tree clearing ordinances, and there's a financial penalty. So there's going to be a cost that's going to be hopefully exacted for what they're doing. I don't know, it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube, as you pointed out. But there's going to be some creative, hopefully, relief that we can do besides just the monetary relief, because again, I think that's where I think the county could play a role in this soil erosion. We have a lot of issues going on. I don't know where that runoff goes. I really don't. I don't know if it goes into the.
I don't know which drain, yeah.
I don't know which drain it goes into.
Well, if they pave it or do anything like that, then it's going to be huge issues.
So there's, right now, we're just a bit, just getting them to enjoin from doing anything more. Again, I don't know. The neighbors saw it and called, and the reaction came, but, you're right, it's just kind of hard to unscramble the egg. But we're going to do the best we can to try and at least hold them accountable, and right now, we're going to keep on being as creative as we possibly can in terms of the relief.
Because I would just be afraid drainage, flooding. We've got areas where there's already like highway and stuff, and there are neighbors in close proximity. It just seems like they took an action that could then later cost more in lots of different ways for people. And it's not okay for people to treat Ypsilanti Township as if we don't matter,
Yeah.
and that people can do whatever they want to do.
I've never seen anything like this in a long, long time. And someone planning told them one thing, and they just go in and do whatever they want.
Yeah,
You're right, Deb.
they're aware of what needed to be done and just, move forward with doing what they wanted to do, because, it is a process to get through. But yeah, I think first they're going to have to establish the soil erosion measures just to prevent runoff from the property. That would probably be one of the first things that we're going to ask for. But in the end, they might end up having to replant trees or pay into it, for the tree fund or something like that. And, it's possible that it could get approved eventually, but they just need to go through the proper channels to be able to do it, and they didn't do that.
All right, thank you. The next item is request to approve the Township Board Standard and Ethics Policy. In the packet is the revisions that were made from the last work session that HR and Attorney Winters has worked on, and the board provided input. Are there questions or comments? Karen, did you want to?
Yeah, just based on the comments and recommendations from the last meeting, I did amend Article 4 of the policy and added that at the regular orientations, the new trustees would be given the federal and state statutes, township ordinances, township policies, and procedures would be included as part of that orientation. And even put in that HR will help Township Council do those. And then basically upon approval of the members of the board, all of you would receive a copy of the policy and be asked to acknowledge, to sign an acknowledgement form stating that you have received and understand them. And then we, as the HR department, would provide newly elected or appointed trustees a copy of the policy when we do their onboarding process.
Do we sign the policies and procedures as well? Or no?
If yes, I mean, if we haven't
Travis
provided
voted.
you with a copy of the policies and procedures and everything to this point, we need to do that. And there is a sign off in the policy that indicates acknowledgement of receiving those as well.
Did you, IT required us to acknowledge the policies and to sign them too?
So I think this would be a good time to make sure everybody has everything listed. And
And you're revising.
even copies, I mean, I'm thinking now, even copies of the union contracts. I know sometimes the trustees are interested in seeing that. So we could provide electronic copies of the union contracts and get as much information to you and have you sign off on all of that.
Okay.
Any questions? Did I miss anything from the last meeting?
Yep, Madam
That's
Chair.
a whole board, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that includes us too.
Yep, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yes, one thing, I was trying to find the information in previous emails that was able to locate it. It's an item that I believe Treasurer Eldridge was bringing up in previous boards about our full-time elected officials and their attendance. A regular work week, 40-hour work week, and he probably could elaborate a little better than I can, but just wanted to know if our board members, current board members, would be interested in adding this into our ethics policy about our full-time electeds, putting in 40 hours here at the township. Now, of course, they have a variety of meetings they may need to attend, but just to put it on the record and that they are going to give that commitment to our residents, that they will put in 40 hours. And I believe that salary increases at the end of the year would be contingent upon, are they actually doing that throughout the year? So I'll make way for the board members if you're interested in that. And if I was off on that, any Treasurer Eldridge, you can correct me.
No, I mean, you're correct. I had talked about it several years ago. It was advised that you can't do it because state law doesn't dictate the number of hours that a full-time elected official in any capacity in the state of Michigan works. So whether they put in 1 hour or 100 hours in a month, it can't be dictated by any policy.
Madam Chair, I would just add, though, that, I don't know, like what Stan said is true, that is the state statute, but just me as a person, me personally as an elected official, I do make a good faith effort to be here from 8:30 to 4:30 every day, and, I don't know if that's like just a verbal, non-formal, commitment to the board and to my peers, like, I know how important it is to Brenda and to Stan that I'm here every day. So Stan's right, it can't be a policy because it's not what the state law says, but, I think that we've tried to do a good job of keeping each other accountable.
Thank you.
So,
Is there a policy in the policy and procedure manuals regarding work ethic or, no? Okay. I haven't, it's been a long time.
yeah, I could look back in the minute, sorry.
I was like my chance, I'm sorry. Madam Chair, I'd just like to speak to it, and I agree with Stan. I believe it does say that. But also, I think and if you're talking about elected officials, who are not salary, like Brenda and them are salary, we're salary, but we are not full-time elected officials. And what happens is that you'll be surprised how many calls you may get. It might be on the phone for 2 or 3 hours, or going to see about somebody's issue, either there's, concerning grass or whatever. Cats, oh God, cats, and going over that neighborhood a couple of times, and other things, attending funerals of people who have lived in this community forever. Or I was and I missed it this weekend because, of course, it's holiday, and people came up with Mother Bates, who I think from Brown Chapel, she was what, 103 or 4? To do a drive-by with numerous other residents in the township. So I think there's other things, that we get out and do. I can only speak for myself, okay? That you get out to do to try to serve your residents.
Right.
And, not looking at the salary too much is something that you made a commitment to as a part-time elected official.
Right. And there is an attendance policy, is that what they call it? For trustees.
What there? What'd you say?
Attendance policy for trustees.
Okay.
So there, but.
For board meetings.
Yeah, for board meetings. And
But not for events to sit down. I think you did something that it hasn't been done since I've been here. You asked the trustees, what have you attend? What's coming up? Maybe to allow other people a chance. They went to the picnic too. And I went to maybe another picnic too. But also to let them know what's going on in your community. That you might be able to stop by to attend. And so you get those kind of events that you make a decision, sure, you should be there at some of them. You should show face in your community.
Yeah.
So that's my point behind it.
Jimmy, I haven't looked at it since Stan brought it up before, and I don't know if that's ethics or work ethic. We can definitely look at it again. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I did my due diligence as I know that Treasurer Eldridge did it in previous boards, bringing it to the boards, and I think sometime it was just turned down. The board wasn't interested, but I didn't realize there was actually state statute that didn't even allow policy.
But an ethic is different than requirement, right? Right. So now that you mention it, maybe we can look at it, Heather, in that avenue as opposed to a requirement.
Ethics, yeah.
Yeah.
So is that something that you're saying that you would want added to this policy before you would approve it, or?
No.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
in the future,
I just
so
want to
we
make
can
sure.
start looking at it and.
Okay.
Is it in the policies and procedures? I know there's something in policy, there has to be about working. Oh,
It's probably not addressing elected officials. It would be addressing employees.
okay.
So,
But you were allowed to do something previously that elected trustee elected positions. So the law allows for part-time elected officials to be impacted in that way, but it doesn't allow for a full-time official, is what I'm hearing people say. Because I know Park Commission's the same way. If you don't attend the meeting, you don't get compensated.
yeah, well, the policy for the trustees, I'm not even sure, bad on my end that I didn't even get you for a copy of that, or especially the 3 that wasn't on the board when it was passed. But it allows for 3 absences in a year.
You gave it to us.
Right, oh, I did.
In our
Okay.
orientation.
In the orientation, okay, good.
Yep, you did.
Didn't forget that, anyway.
And that was brought about because there were trustees that missed a lot of meetings, like a year's worth. One moved out of state and was still getting paid
Right,
because we didn't have a policy in place.
right,
So
okay. Any other
we can
questions?
look at it different ways, just
Yeah. Okay,
that legal counsel will agree with. I guess. All right. Thank you very much, Karen and Doug and Debbie and Monica Ross Williams, who brought it forward the last time. So. The next item is the recommendation of Washington County Road Commission to declare no through trucking zones on specified sections of Parkwood and McKean. These are 2 streets that have had a lot of concerns with truck traffic, Parkwood being one. It's interesting because if it went further down, that means this could not be a trucking location. I just thought of that when Belinda was speaking on Parkwood. And then McKean has had, I mean, an unbelievable amount of deaths at the intersection of McKean and Martz Road. So they did put up a big blinking light, but there is trash coming from Sumter landfill, well, containers coming from Sumter landfill where they're bringing trash in from another state out east, and they're bringing it to Michigan, and then the cargoes are coming down McKean to go to a business that loads them back onto the rail cars. So, and it's, the traffic is amazing. I've never seen so much truck traffic on McKean Road, and the trailers are very, very long. They don't violate the weight limitations, but it should not be a truck route when they can go up to Textile and easily make the same route, but they won't do it, and I don't know why. It's easier? Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to add that in putting this together in the map on the left, the one that shows McKean Road, that's not like a total accurate picture of the 2,750 feet, but that's in order to still allow the trucks to go into the UAW Ford Rawsonville plant, but my line might not be to scale, sorry. Stan said it wasn't, so.
I don't know how far it is.
It goes
Swan
past-
Creek?
It will prohibit trucks going south on McKean, if you're familiar with that area, just after you cross over the railroad tracks next to the
little
east side
gray.
of the Rawsonville factory. That's really where the neighborhood starts. There's no businesses down there. There's no reason to go that way. So they'll have to go in and out
Your
off
mic's
of
not on,
McKean
Stan.
using Textile.
Right.
And then have to go up to Rawsonville and go. Sorry, I did it.
So if they're coming down Rawsonville, they'd come in on Textile, then turn left on McKean.
Right.
As opposed to going down Rawsonville, turning left on Martz, and then turning right on McKean. I've never seen, I tried to follow them, and went to a landfill in Sumter Township. And
they're taking out stop signs, traffic signs.
Curbs on, it's
Curb-
just,
yeah.
it's out of, curbs on Rawsonville. So this is the first time we've done that, and I didn't know that we could until the road commission had the meeting and shared them with it. That's a possible solution. So
Yeah.
we've been complaining for 2 years, but at least we have a possible solution for it.
And if we vote on this tonight, it will go on to the Washington County Road Commission meeting that's on the 21st. So if anyone's like free that night or wants to hop on and just, our letter of support, of course, means a lot, but, any additional comments always help the board make a good decision. Or I guess we have a board meeting that night. Never mind. Send your friends.
No, it's on Wednesday.
Oh, it's the
Their meetings
22nd. It's the 22nd. It's on the Wednesday, right?
You're welcome. Any questions about that? I'm so glad we can do something. Other communities do it all the time. I didn't know that we could. Number 5 is a request to set a public hearing date of Tuesday, September 21st at approximately 7 p.m. for the special assessment tax levy. Number 6 is budget amendment. Number 10. So we're transferring from general fund balance to 14B court, $200,000. And because of COVID, the revenue has been just so low in our courts because, well, we've been down sheriff deputies and ordinance officers, and so there's not been a lot of revenue from that. Any questions on that? It'll be about $700,000 this year. And we did claim a lot of it from 2020, right? Lost revenue. BSNR 213 is for accept a donation from the Ann Arbor Board of Realtors for the raised flower bed and butterfly garden at Sugarbrook Park. So we have to receive that contribution and then we'll expense it out. And fire pension OPEB millage fund, it was to increase it, so make an additional payment of $19,025, which was more tax revenue received than anticipated. So this is a very specific tax, so we need to apply it to the pension, which hopefully will help the liability. And compost fund was to increase a PTO payout. We talked about that earlier, where people can request paid time off if they have a large bank and they want to get additional dollars. It can. So that's for the compost fund. That's it.
Go ahead. No, you go.
Oh, I just had a question about the what do I want to say, court fund. Now, that would be an example of,
Lost revenue.
and what the CARES.
Reimbursed, yeah.
Yep, okay. But because our general fund was helping to pay for it this time, it wouldn't,
Yeah, it's not every year that we'll get reimbursed for those lost revenues.
right,
It's for
right.
21, right?
Yeah, so I guess I'm saying we're not going to use the CARES for that to replace this lost revenue.
Yes, we can. That is an authorized
Right,
loss of revenue
okay,
is one that we can do. There's about 700-some thousand, Giovanna, estimated on our lost revenue
yeah,
in 2020.
right, okay. So that's still under consideration,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to come to the board, right?
right?
Yes. So Giovanna Neal, Accounting Director. So in order to calculate the lost revenue, you have to use your last full year before COVID, which would be 2019, and then you compare that with your revenues for 2020. And the lost revenue that we had calculation was, I think, about $722,000. Then when you do the same thing for 2020 to 2021. So there is another calculation. I don't think it's going to be as much because actually our taxable values have increased. So, and they take all the funds, not just one fund or the fund that lost, but everything, every fund we have. So, right.
Like if we were a
I'm
city,
gonna have
if
to
you
go
lost
after my
parking revenue, like City of Ann Arbor did a lot on parking revenue, but we don't have that. So ours is recreation and court.
Those
Were
were our
the-
big losses, but we also had building fund who didn't lose, and that's so the calculations on all of the funds, it's not just the ones we lost and the general fund that had to supplement. They look at all of it, so that's,
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
see we only have like 4 minutes now. Hoping we get a little break, but I have to ask, you didn't ask about the board members' update, so I guess we're under other discussion, and I don't see it on the agenda. Just want to know if the body here, the board, seen Larry's resolution, have they made a decision on it, or will it come back for discussion at a later date?
Larry Craig has asked for a resolution, and we are researching, because there was a website that he submitted, and we wanted to make sure that it didn't call for the
Additional
increase.
dollars,
Right,
yeah.
the increase in supporting a resolution can say that you support increasing taxes.
Okay, I did see that email. I just wanted to know if the other board members have seen it.
I don't have the research on it yet.
Okay, okay.
So,
So, you know, I did send
Friday
it to
we
you,
got
so I want him to know I sent it, so.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever decision of the board is
Yeah.
pleasing to me.
So Larry Craig wants us to support the expansion of rail. So
Additional
I don't know if
service.
that's RTA, which is a large mill increase, or if that's a separate pot of money. So
Okay,
it's not as simple as it sounds when you read it.
yeah, good. Have to
But yeah.
investigate it.
And we did get it Friday.
All right, thank you.
We just want to make sure it's not we're not saying Ypsilanti Township supports a rate increase in our taxes to pay for it. All right, so the meeting is adjourned at 6.